The fat was still hissing on the altar fire when the priest's servant shoved the fork into the cauldron. He didn't wait for the offering to finish cooking. Didn't ask. Didn't care. He just stabbed the meat, yanked the flesh from the pot, and tossed it in a basin beside him, raw, bloody, half-boiled. It wasn't his to take. It hadn't been offered to God, but that didn't matter anymore. Because in Shiloh the house of the Lord had become a place of theft, and the priests who stole from it bore his name. The man in charge was Eli, a priest of Israel and judge over the people. He was old, nearly blind. He had served for decades at the Tabernacle, the sacred tent that housed the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark was the center of Israel's faith, the very seat of God's presence. Eli lived beside it, slept beside it, tended the altar every day. But it wasn't Eli who was desecrating the offerings. It was his sons, Hophni and Phinehas. They were priests, too, inherited their office by birth, but they didn't walk in their father's ways. They took what wasn't theirs, demanded raw meat from the sacrifices, threatened worshippers, slept with the women who served at the entrance to the tent. They wore the robes of holiness, but underneath, they were rotting. The people knew. Everyone in Israel knew. Shiloh had become a place of fear, not reverence. The sacrifices meant to honor God were twisted into opportunities for gluttony and control. The sons of Eli had turned the priesthood into a racket. And Eli, he knew too. But he didn't stop them. He spoke, softly. Rebuked them, yes. Asked why they did such things, warned them they were sinning against the Lord. But he never removed them, never disqualified them, never drove them out of the tabernacle. He let it happen. He let them stay. And so God acted. One night, a man of God came to Eli. A prophet, unnamed, director, uninvited. He didn't flatter, didn't plead, just stood in Eli's presence and delivered the verdict. God had chosen Eli's family to serve before him, had given them access to the altar, to the sacrifices, to the holy place. But they had despised his offerings. They had honored themselves above God, gorging on meat meant for him, making a mockery of his laws. And so judgment was coming. Eli's sons would die on the same day. His priestly line would be cut off. No old man would remain in his house. His descendants would beg for scraps at the altar. And a new priest, faithful, righteous, would rise in his place. The word of the Lord was final. But it was not the last. In those days, the voice of the Lord was rare. Israel was fractured, tribes scattered, the priesthood corrupted, no king to unify the people. The Ark of the Covenant remained in Shiloh, but God no longer spoke through the priests. Until one night, he spoke to a child. The boy's name was Samuel. He had been dedicated to the Lord by his mother, Hannah, a barren woman who prayed so fervently for a son that Eli once mistook her for drunk. When her prayer was answered, she kept her vow, giving Samuel to the tabernacle as soon as he was weaned. And now, as Eli's own sons rebelled, Samuel ministered before the Lord in humility. He slept in the tabernacle not far from the ark, and one night he heard a voice call his name, Samuel. He thought it was Eli. He ran to the old priest's side, but Eli had not called. 3 times the voice came, and on the third, Eli realized what was happening. The Lord was calling the boy, and Samuel said, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." God gave Samuel a message. It was not soft. It confirmed everything the prophet had spoken. Judgment was coming for Eli's house, because Eli knew his sons were blaspheming, and he did not restrain them. Their guilt would not be atoned for by sacrifice or offering forever. In the morning, Samuel hesitated. He feared telling Eli, but the old priest demanded the truth. And when Samuel told him, Eli didn't cry, didn't argue. He just said, "He is the Lord." Let him do what seems good to him. And the Lord was with Samuel from that day forward. Time passed. The tabernacle in Shiloh remained. The sons of Eli continued their priestly duties, but the silence was gone. God was speaking again, and Samuel's name began to spread, first among the priests, then among the tribes, then across all Israel. Still, Eli's sons did not repent, and so came the day of judgment. Israel went to war with the Philistines, their longtime enemies on the western border. The two armies clashed at Ebenezer, and Israel suffered heavy losses. 4,000 men died. The elders were shaken. They didn't understand. Why had the Lord not fought for them? And then someone had an idea. They would bring the Ark of the Covenant to the battlefield. The Ark, God's throne on earth, had once led their armies through the wilderness. It had parted rivers, toppled walls. Perhaps, they thought, it would deliver them now. So they sent to Shiloh, and Hophni and Phinehas, Eli's sons, carried the ark from the tabernacle into the war. It was a chilling image, two corrupt priests, bearing the holiest object in Israel, parading it through the camp like a trophy. The soldiers cheered, the Philistines trembled, but God was not with them. The battle at Ebenezer was a massacre. Israel lost 30,000 men. The ark was captured, and Hophni and Phinehas were killed, just as God had said. A Benjaminite soldier fled the field and ran to Shiloh, clothes torn, dust on his head. He told Eli everything. The old priest sat by the gate, trembling. His eyes were dim, his body frail. When he heard that his sons were dead, he didn't cry. But when he heard that the ark of God had been taken, that his presence had been removed from Israel, he fell backward off his seat, broke his neck, and died. He had judged Israel for 40 years, and died with the word of the Lord fulfilled. That same day, Phinehas's wife went into labor. She had heard the news of her husband's death, her father-in-law's fall, and the loss of the ark. And in her agony, as she gave birth, she named the child Ichabod. The glory has departed from Israel. She died shortly after. The story of Eli is a quiet tragedy. He wasn't evil. He wasn't violent. He believed in God, served him, spoke with reverence, raised Samuel with kindness. But he looked the other way. He let his sons turn the priesthood into corruption. He let injustice rot the place of holiness. And though he spoke, he didn't act. He feared God, but not enough to confront sin in his own house. And when the time came, God didn't spare him. Eli's fall marked the end of the old order. From his ashes rose Samuel, the prophet who would anoint kings, confront tyrants, and guide Israel into its future. But the warning remains, because when the people were silent, God wasn't. And when Eli allowed evil to flourish under the robes of the holy, God tore the robes away. Thank you for listening to Divine Crime. Subscribe for more true stories from the most dangerous book ever written.